Hello and welcome to another Warno cast of Division 4. Today with Syndi on the blue side on the left with 1st Canadian, and on the right side in red we have TheHellene with 1st Moto. And today I'm going to try something a bit different because I already casted this matchup, but yeah, the microphone was turned off, so I have a silent video of no talking of the match, so that's not very exciting. So I want to try something that FatKit suggested to me, which is to make an analysis of the matchup after watching it and try to highlight important moments and maybe fast forward or skip through boring parts so that the video is a bit shorter and that we focus more on important parts. If we look at the deployment, we can already see one important part. 1st Canadian has the more defensive positioning due to the 4th Moto having a lot of airborne units and special forces, like the Fallschirmjäger Medes. So the slower division has to go farther into the back. And as we can see from the deployment, the blue side Syndi is actually not taking the zone that is usually for the blue side. The center of the map is basically drawn through this part, and it's mirrored on both sides. So these 3 zones are for the red side, and usually these 3, but never mind, it's 4 zones, not 3. There's one as well. These 4 zones are for the blue side, and in the middle, Boris is a battle, and usually this goes to the faster division, but there's a big fight over this town that you can flank. And actually what will happen in this matchup is that there will be a lot of action in the north and south and not so much about Boris. Mainly because this heavy investment in units from the red side for the early safety of the zone means that the blue side doesn't really have a chance to ever contest it. There's a bit of a try to get in a CV later, but not really much of an investment, just securing this area. There isn't really much going for the south, 1 CV and 1 Medes. That is going pretty far forward, so it goes beyond this middle line that we can imagine, and it doesn't really have vision on this road, so that will matter because they can't make use of their 1250 meter range weapon. We can see that it's like 500 meters vision only. And if we check the deployment for the blue side, we can see that there are 2 tanks and 2 infantry units and grizzlies pushing forwards to this area, and they will actually be here in time that the transport will get under fire. So this transport is deployed a bit too far forward and further in the back, maybe in the forest. Maybe over here would be a better position. The house also doesn't have the greatest range, but maybe this house would be better, or else somewhere in this forest maybe, to secure this road that goes to Dimitri. But he has a more offensive positioning, so it makes sense that he tries to get further to the front line. He is relatively passive in the north, because he assumes the zone will go to the blue side, so both sides will ignore Gregory for the start, and the red side won't push because he doesn't know that there are no units, but the blue side will then later capture it without much of a fight, and then there will fight over it later when more units are deployed to blow flanks. So yeah, that's the deployment. I guess we can now start the battle, and then the first skirmish will be done in the south, and then we can go from there. There is an early plane that will come in for the blue side, an AA plane, so CF 188, but there are literally no planes or helicopters on the other side, so that's 265 points invested to protect absolutely nothing. So there are no other planes or helicopters on the blue side as well. And something that we will see as we continue this match is a lack of ground AA units. As we can see, there are no ground AA. So pretty much both sides invest a lot of points into planes to get the AA protection. We do have some either Eagler or Strelas for the red side and Coops. So the red side does a lot of a better job with AA protection on the ground, while the blue side invests a lot into the AA planes. And that will become an issue later in the game. So it's CV from red in the north, actually not going to Gregory as mentioned, but it went to Anna first, the 2-point zone, then to center, and then we'll go to both later, while the CV down here will take Dimitri. The nice passing there from the red side. CV from blue won't advance for a while, so nothing special going on there. But the interesting part, the first skirmish, will happen down here. You can see that the blue side tries to make his push over here. This biggest investment, so he just wants to be defensive in the north and center, where the major points are for the red side. And Syndi wants to make the push down here, and his transports, the Grizzlies, find the transport of the Medes, but the Fallschirmjäger Medes able to get out of transport, and the first Medes rocket does miss, so the transports are stressed but not destroyed. And now a second rocket is launched and the transport's actually smoking off, and the Medes, the Fallschirmjäger, can go into the forest, while the tanks continue to move forward. Zone was captured. The CV in the north, in the center from the north, will eventually go into this zone. Plane in the air, just flying around, not really getting any action. As mentioned, those sky units for the red side. Sky units is a nice way of saying it. And lack of micro over here from Syndi. The two tanks not reacting that the Fallschirmjäger Medes was still alive, running into it, getting a hit, and have to smoke off and retreat. And I think the mod rifles will also, one of them will die, since they're just smaller squads, 6-man against 8-man, or maybe now 5-man special forces squad with shock trade. So they will actually win this 1v1 as no backup comes. And now some mod schützen will come for the forest and backup. But there's actually a lack of units for the red side down here in the south. So one of the things that we could point out to secure and help with the situation, not just that you send units to the south to secure the area and stop the push. And one of the Grizzlies almost getting killed by the Fallschirmjäger at the same time, but now the helicopter comes in. But you know, if a lot of points are invested in one area, that means there are less points invested in the other areas. So pushing forwards with some scouts to get more intel and maybe take some ground in another location of the map might be the good counter to deal with this kind of situation. Pioneers now trying to go the southern route. And as mentioned, in the north, the red side, TheHellene, doesn't know that the zone is this empty, but now moves forward and will get the intel and eventually contest the zone, while the Fallschirmjäger in the south were enough to make Syndi insecure about pushing further forward, and now a T-55 to support from the back. And a bit later we will see that the blue zone will be able to push forward. But the two are now from afar able to pick off this T-55, so big loss, no reaction. They do have smoke, so it was probably that the focus was somewhere else. And we see one T-55 pushing through the forest. The positioning would be nice, but unfortunately the mag rifles that were sent to destroy the mod schützen find the T-55 in a moment. And first the transport and then the T-55. So the plan for the TheHellene to push through the forest and then have a nice location for the T-55, unfortunately ruined by those mag rifles. Pioneers getting killed from afar by a unit with SVD, the sniping rifle, while the helicopter able to give some firing support. Now we do see the first air skirmishes. AT plane almost immediately shut down. I'm not sure yet when to fast forward this matchup. The first time I'm trying this, so I'm mostly just commenting as usual, I guess. And now the CV actually, without support, goes into the corner of the zone, which at the time I watched it the first time, I thought this was a nice move, especially since the leader from the right side was outside. But it's a bit dangerous, and we will in a moment later see this Leopard will get damaged by, I think it was a helicopter, and has to retreat, and then later goes back into the zone. But I want to question that move, even though I liked it while watching the replay the first time. But all it does is give a few points, and it wasn't like a game-changing amount of points, while you're basically throwing away or suiciding a CV tank that you could repair and maybe use in a better way. And it's just that there's no attempt even to get some protection in front of it. Not the transport, not the pioneers. The Fallschirmjäger is still alive, so that's also a big mistake that these special forces are not destroyed sooner with all the units that you have. Watch Schützen not going forward. And bit by bit, the units built up in the north. Well, now they got a bit reduced, but eventually the red side will have enough forces to try and pressure this area as well. And then we have 2 points of attacks and focus. It will be distracting. Here you can see one of the MiGs flying very deep into the blue zone. And absolutely no ground AA apart from a Javelin in the south. And actually a Skyguard in the south as well. But up here, the entire north and center, no AA, so the planes can just fly around as much as they want without getting punished for it. Supply truck tried to help the Fallschirmjäger, but wasn't able to make it through. I think was it the tour? I wasn't paying attention what killed it actually. And now some artillery play. The artillery, I think, worked out pretty nicely for a Syndi, but it wasn't really enough to make a difference, since the red side already has a point lead, and well, overall, the better positioning. There's a chance down here in the south, I would say, for the blue side. Guy got going pretty far in, probably to give some support for the infantry units. Pioneers will fight the Mod Schützen with the Leopard together. Leopard currently driving backwards. If an AA with an anti-tank missile goes out, no side shot. And something that we can also see in this matchup, a lot of units are in the back, not giving any real support. There's obviously a reason to have these units here for some protection in the backline, that there's no flanking. But a lot of the blue points are invested and not really sent into battle. Now the air battle goes on, and the red side has the advantage of the Strela, of the group, infantry Strelas as well. So every time those planes battle over this area, the AA on the ground for the red side gives them significant advantage. And I wasn't paying attention to the Skyguard, but I think it got destroyed by the tank and transport. And now, what I told earlier about the Leopard C1 happens. It goes back, and the red side will get a point tick again, but the CV survives. But it won't get repaired, and instead tries to get back in sooner in the match, later in the match. And it will just stop the point tick or get a point tick for a short amount of time, but not enough to really make a difference in the points. So that is not a winning move if you are not very close in points and a few points matter. Now CV comes in for the center. I think that's also a mistake Syndi made in this matchup. I believe that is a CV that will just try to move in without the scout in front, without rear support. So that's another CV just sent in on a suicide mission in desperation. And that's what several moves of Syndi felt like in this match. That he was behind in points, so he felt desperate to try something and just threw away units instead of making combined arms attacks in better locations. But it is difficult, especially if you lost more units and have a bit of a disadvantage already. Where do you find enough units to really do something? The units in the north will get riled up. The planes constantly lose. Another one going down. The MiG does survive for the time being. And the HE bomber is destroyed by the coup. And as mentioned before, the ground AA just doing a much better job on the red side. And the T-55s down here together with some other units pick off a lot of blue infantry units. Artillery aiming over here, and I think the Aufklärer won't be able to get the kill on the leader, but the leader pretty much alone. I think at this point I was even talking about, in the first recording, about using artillery to get rid of this leader and some other key units. We are now at a almost 400 points advantage with a +2 tick still going on, and quite a significant advantage on the board for the blue side. Forgot not dying after I think the third hit even, and the Leopard had to smoke off and then retreat, and in the end the artillery got the kill. So a lot of micro and resources invested, and eventually just the artillery taking care of it. And we can already see here the TheHellene doing a good job of pushing forward after destroying the units that defended the area. Probably not knowing about these mag rifles, mod rifles yet, so losing one unit in transport, which is annoying, but still a significant amount of units for the red side in this area. And I forgot to check which unit it was, but I think it was a ground AA unit. That's not really the unit you need at the moment down here, but, well, at least some AA was attempted. One new leader that is moving to... yeah, this is, well, goes for this area. But what we will see in a moment... Now we have the infantry over here checking the corner for the CV that got stressed out by taking a bit of damage. And I think this is the Eltis which will eventually be rerouted to go over the north into Anna, which is a +2 zone, so that's really annoying. But it's completely by itself, and a helicopter and scout unit are just sent to take care of it, and then the leader goes back and takes the zone. So similar to this CV that goes in now for the capture to get some points. It does reduce the point tick, it maybe get some points on the board, but that's not really winning you the war. You have to secure an area in this kind of situation, which down here doesn't seem possible at the moment. Center doesn't look good, but, well, it probably doesn't see all of these units in the zone yet, so maybe that's an area he could attempt. And actually, the Sprengtore have satchel charges, no rockets, so the CV can't get destroyed by them. But now the Meadows tries to go in and takes a kill. But it's enough to push the CV out, so kind of a victory. And even with just the CV, the red side, able to contest the zone for so long, will be able to destroy the transport eventually. And now, even with some AA coverage and against infantry and another tank, able to secure this area. It is not really in here like, it doesn't make really sense that he's in here because there's a mod rifles leader. So either it should be in the back in case the mod rifles die, or go to a different location. And we can see now the area in the center pretty much secured by special forces. There's a bit of a lack of repairs and support supplies in the front lines, but yeah, we can see now here what I talked about earlier. The tank leader just going down to an AT helicopter. It reduced the pointing for a moment, but it bought him a bit of time, but he doesn't need time, he needs to get a zone secured. So it's something I probably maybe would have tried as well, since it seems like a nice area to contest the zone when you already have your CV over here. But yeah, sadly, in hindsight, with the overview of the match and seeing everything else that goes on, it is not something that will really help you out. And the CV Leopard in the center goes back in. But once more, the Fallschirmjäger matters. Might get the vision eventually. And already down to half hitch points. But we can already tell a clear advantage for the red side all over the map. And now pushing forward in the south. The Ito never unloaded will get destroyed in transport. And we can see no other units over here. The red side will eventually be able to capture the zone and secure the area. He doesn't threaten the supply road over here, where the units come in for the center and north, but that's already enough control to really threaten the blue side, and it's a +2 zone, so losing that is already devastating. So even the sneaky play to get into the +2 zone of your opponent won't matter if your opponent has the other +2 zone already and the point lead. So that's basically a backbreaker, and Syndi should know that he doesn't have control over the zone, that he had a problem in this house for a while. You can see some artillery play now helping out in the north as well. Helicopter goes down to the Schilker, and now the play that I mentioned happens, actually not even using the road but going through the forest, so it will take even longer. And since this is a fast movement command, yeah, it will take a weird passing over parts of the road, then off-road, then back onto the road, probably, since it's a fast movement command and not a short distance, or like the direct line movement. Shake under fire by the artillery. And the CV in the center was destroyed now. The matters did go down, so it was maybe the Mordschützen. And together with the superior forces in the skies, there is now a lot of control of the map for the red side. We do have this mech rifles far in the front, but without any more rockets, so they can't really help out against transports. Give some vision, but not really much. And here we can see the superiority in the skies for the red side. And one javelin over here, and one adder's actually now in the north. But now the planes are just flying over territory where no AA is, and basically prevent any airplay from the blue side, from 1st Canadian. Syndi does manage to push out the red forces in the north, so a bit of a small victory over here. Schilker even coming in to secure the skies in the south. And I think that's the new leader that was bought for the south. Something I mentioned while watching the replay the first time, you could use this leader, put it in transport to drive over here and send a new CV either for the zone to make sure that it stays safe, or send it somewhere more like over here, so that you have a backup CV that can go to any zone that gets contested and have some safety that way, that you don't run out of CVs on the front line, while being a bit quicker to get into the zone to capture it. And the Fallschirmjäger Einsatzgruppe that was moved through the forest, actually picking off one Leopard, but now out of rockets, and the Leopard smokes off despite the opponent not having any more rockets because he doesn't know and wants to stay safe. So also a lot of annoying pressure from the red side over here. It is a scout, so it also gets a lot of intel, and that helps to secure this area. Mech rifles pushing us through the road, but that won't matter. Now a seaplane even coming in. He probably knows about the edits, but it's turned off, so seaplane won't be able to get that kill. The Iltis CP will get into the zone in the back before the CV in the south will do the same for the red side. So at the moment, Pointig goes back to the other side, and it's immediately reacted by buying a helicopter and a scout and a tank. So multiple units sent immediately towards this area to secure it, and it won't make much of a difference. Units in the north not being able to find something, but CV over here will make it into the zone uncontested. Leopard not brave enough to try and take another route, no support sent to change this fate, so giving up this +2 zone. I'm not sure if there was any chance of really changing that, if the blue side Syndi could have done something, but just giving it up, probably the worst thing you can do while trying to fight yourself over any point you can get. And as mentioned, the leader just dies, so maybe 100 points, maybe a bit more until CV arrives, gained from this, but not really a game changer, while the zone in the south contested and, well, secured for the red side. Tank actually down to 12 fuel, and first unit picked up on the road, second unit will be killed in transport. Skyguard might make it. It's not in vision anymore, so the rocket will fly by. It's a Skyguard with radar, so it's directly over a seat and a dangerous position to be for a radar AA piece. But yeah, that was TheHellene versus Syndi on the first map Omen with a 2.5 kill ratio. So what was the problem? I mean, it's always a bit difficult since the micro aspect plays a lot of a matter in Division 4, that the players just aren't always doing the exact same kind of stuff on the exact same level. So was it really a strategy loss, or was TheHellene just simply better? I think Syndi had a bit of chances. I think the push in the south was the big issue in the start. There were 2 tanks and infantry units stopped by 1 special forces infantry unit, and they didn't dare to push into the zone. They didn't kill the special forces soon enough and didn't gain the ground in the south. So that was quite a significant problem, that the big investment of the opener didn't play out, and that you were too defensive in the north. You didn't get that zone captured and secured, and as a result you just gave away a lot of points to your opponent and didn't fight over the crucial areas. And the other problem was a lack of ground AA units. Some were destroyed, so it's not just that they weren't bought or forgotten about, and that Syndi completely relied on airplanes as AA coverage, but there were just too little on the ground, and the constant air pressure and an investment in air that didn't pay off added to the problems that Syndi already had. And in the end, in hindsight, the two sneaky CVs that got into the zones in the south with the tank and in the north with the Iltis, getting a bit of points, but that doesn't really save you. And leaving a +2 zone in the south completely undefended was a backbreaker. So definitely an area where units should have been sent to secure the area. The Ito was killed in transport, so a bit of a mistake, and there would have been a better defensive coverage in the south. Yes, but still just one ATGM is not enough to hold that area forever. So there should have been more units, especially since the opponent had the planes, had the artillery, so the Ito, the ATGM, could have been destroyed very quickly and easily. So yeah, a few mistakes, but definitely chances to improve. And with that, I will move on to the second map, which is Kreide. On the left side on Kreide, we can see Syndi in red this time, and on the right side, TheHellene. And Syndi plays 20th Pancerna, while TheHellene plays 7th Panzer Division. And there's a bit of a difference in the opener from both sides. The red side has one big group of units with two Zaperzis, a T-55AS, one of the Coven launchers with the indirect firing rocket, Shilka, and the Hunkaroos Special Forces with our Spezialni are going down here to fight over the south. And a second group, big group, going here in the north into the front line and trying to secure this area. And with two T-72s, Shilka, two Rospezani with Honkaroos. Oh wait, that's not a Honkaroos. Never mind. That's a Honkaroos, so yes, I was right, but I looked at the wrong units. And a T-55 leader. And something that will happen once we start the replay is that in this area there will be a lack of a push, despite the blue units having the blue side having less units. So the zone Fedor won't be contested for a while, and the north, the units that went up here, not really pushing for the north either. So not decisive enough, not aggressive enough for the red side. That's something we will see, despite, as we can see from the other side, really low amount of troops for the north, for the blue side. So the red side is going for the usual positioning in the south to fight over Boris, but a heavy investment also in the north. So pushing the both flanks, while on the other side we can see for TheHellene a big push in the center, and the other group will go to the south. And that will matter because the units that go to the center can rotate over through the forest and support the units in the south. So these units, while going to different areas, can support each other, while the units of the red side will be in troubles here because of the forest. They can't push forward with the tanks quickly, and as a result will have a much slower advance, while the blue side will be able to secure much more ground and eventually these zones and pressure forward in this entire area. So the question is that we should ask ourselves as an analyst, basically, that's what we're doing right now, if investing in two areas that are far away from each other is really a smart idea, or if you should have maybe smaller groups for two direction and one area where you really invest a lot of points. Or if you do it like this, if you should invest into the center to secure the middle area from which you can go up north or save or help the south, similar as TheHellene has done, which at least in this matchup seemed like the smarter way and the better end result. And one thing that I want to pay attention to this time is the T-55AS, which will go to this forest. It uses the rocket with a long range as support to the Zaperzis by killing off an infantry unit, but it is in a position where it can't use the machine gun and tank gun, so it will be not much of a fire support for the infantry units, and as a result it feels a bit like a waste. So that's something to pay attention to them. Maybe if the tank would be over here or further on the front, maybe it could have done more to help the units and not just stand in the back and wait to get destroyed eventually. And then we can start this match up and see how it plays out. Similar as on the last map, we can see no helicopters from both sides. So definitely a focus on ground units for both players. You can see that the TheHellene has some AA units, while the Shriekers always give some infantry unit support as well. But we also can see at least one Eagler. So at least some AA protection, while on the red side you can see the one AA gun for the north to protect the T-72s, but completely lack of AA. Oh no, never mind, there was one AA gun as well, hidden behind the tank. And there was actually one sneaky Honkaroos that went through in the south, which will pick off a unit. I think it's the Eagler. Yeah, it's the Eagler. So the Eagler will eventually be killed by the Spezialny and or the Honkaroos. And the Sapersi, they are a bit too late. Spezialaufklärer already in the forest. I think it might even kill one in transport, since the unloading is far in the forest. So one unloads and the second one does not die, so actually the unit gets out, but is now stressed and immediately under fire by the Spezialaufklärer special forces with submachine guns and sniping rifles. And the leader will help to contest the zone in the center, but without any help apart from one Malutka, that won't be able to do much. There's a coffin launcher, gets the special forces, but as mentioned, it will just retreat immediately, not giving firing support, so Sapersi and transport will die pretty soon. BMP was able to unload despite getting shot at from the north. And this is what I mentioned, very defensive and slow push despite having a heavy investment in the units over here. Plane goes down in the meantime, but the blue side has the push in the south with the TheHellene with was it fourth Moto? That was last map, 7th Panzer against the 20th Pancerna from the red side. And it does push a bit forward. The plane, I think, got a hit on the BVP. But now the leader will make it in this forest zone in the south. The T-55 AS did some damage and stress, but not getting any kills. And we can now see it doesn't give any firing support while the units of the blue side move through open grounds, pick off the transport, pick off the Shilka eventually. And just not in a good position to help out. The Spezialny weapons turned off. I think that's also a mistake. You should set it to return fire in the selections of the unit, because this way you have to manually activate the weapons again. So that seems like a bad way to put your infantry units. And as mentioned, Shilka goes down and T-55 just has to retreat. T-72 is now coming in at support, but the rotation from the center comes towards the south. The CV will move into the zone, which is secured, and still no push in the north. A helicopter now coming in to give some support. It's probably going to die by the Shilka, as it's not even aiming at it. And the T-55. So there is a bit of good pressure and nice hits from the red side, but still no contest of the zone in the north, despite just one Spezialaufklärer being there. No leader anymore over here, so no control over this area as well. And just standing very far back, defensive. But I believe we will see an early GG. I think trying to contest this area, securing this zone, and then threatening to go into the back zone in ENG and threaten the supply roads would have been a legitimate play to try and get back control over the map. But obviously, Santa and Boris being firmly under the control of the blue side, so I can see at least what the thoughts were from the red side of Syndi to give up that zone. The leader is perhaps going for the northern zone or for the zone. The leader that used to be here, I think, was killed. So maybe that's one of the reasons also that without the capture of the zone, Syndi felt like this can't be won anymore. But yeah, it feels like there was still enough chance, enough time to get this map turned around. And yeah, my points were that the push in the north where the heavy investment was in wasn't aggressive enough, so you didn't make use of these points that you invested into the zone, while there was a bit of an investment in the south where the tank didn't give support to the units in the forest, which were eventually cleaned up and then one unit by one killed off. And now just tanks by themselves moving forward without support, not being able to achieve anything. So this would be the moment I believe the red side should just build up, get some infantry units, IFVs, tanks, AAs, and do a push later, maybe with some artillery support, but not trying to force the issue and suicide units. That didn't work on the first map with the leaders, that won't work on the second map. Now airplay coming in, getting the first T-72, and this is GG. As mentioned, I believe it was a bit too early. Syndi could have tried to turn things around, but maybe he didn't feel confident anymore after the first map and said, I have enough, and tapped out. So yeah, that was a more analysis-based casting. Let me know in the comments or in Discord if you like this, if it's interesting, or if you prefer the usual cast where I just comment the things as they come with the decks and everything. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.